My parents considered me useless because I couldn't have children, so they sold me like property. They never expected a lonely lumberjack with 4 kids to give me the family they never did. Can you imagine being told at just 20 years old that your own family had sold you? Not for a grand debt, not for a crime, but because a doctor's diagnosis deemed you defective? My heart shattered that day, but little did I know, this ultimate betrayal would be the catalyst for a shocking twist, leading me down a path I never could have foreseen, where true love and family would blossom from the ashes of unimaginable injustice. I'll never forget that cold winter day. My father, Ernest Garcia, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Carmen, we've arranged everything. You'll marry Mr. Alexander. He needs a woman to care for his ranch and his 4 children." I was barely 20, and I just learned my parents had taken money, cold hard cash, to hand me over to a stranger. The reason? Simple yet utterly devastating. 3 months earlier, the town doctor had diagnosed me with infertility. For my traditional rural Texas family, a woman who couldn't bear children was worthless. And so, in the cruelest betrayal, my parents decided to get rid of me. The icy air cut my face as I walked with my mother toward the small town church. My dress wasn't white. It was dark gray like the storm-threatening sky. My face, a mask of dignity, hid the deep humiliation churning inside me. The townspeople whispered as I passed, "There goes the barren one. Poor Mr. Alexander, having to bear with a woman like that." Each word was a needle piercing my soul. My mother walked upright, almost proud. "You should be grateful," she told me that morning, helping me dress. "A man like Mr. Alexander accepting a defective woman like you? Many would want your luck." Luck? Was it luck to be sold like cattle? Was it luck that your own family betrayed you this way? I didn't respond. The tears I'd shed in secret for weeks had dried, leaving only a hollow ache in my chest. The drama of my life had become the entire town's entertainment. The ceremony was brief and cold. Mr. Alexander Mendoza, a man of almost 40, widowed with 4 children, looked at me with an indecipherable expression. He wasn't handsome, but he wasn't unpleasant either. His calloused hands and sun-weathered skin spoke of a life of hard work in the forests. He was a lumberjack and carpenter, owner of a small ranch on the outskirts of town. He didn't smile when the priest declared us husband and wife. He simply nodded like someone closing a business deal, which in essence was exactly what he'd done with my parents. "Let's go," was the only thing he said to me after the ceremony. There was no celebration, no hugs, no good wishes. My parents received an envelope from his hand, which my father quickly tucked into his jacket pocket. The humiliation was complete when I saw my mother discreetly counting the bills as I climbed into Mr. Alexander's rundown truck. They didn't even say goodbye. For them I had ceased to exist. The journey to the ranch was silent. The dirt roads made the truck bounce, and I held onto the seat, trying not to fall. I looked out the window at the arid landscape and the distant pine forests, wondering what would become of me now. "The children will be waiting," he finally said, breaking the silence. "The oldest is 12, the youngest barely 4. Their mother died 2 years ago." I just nodded, saying nothing. At least now I knew what I was facing. The ranch was modest but well-maintained. A 2-story wooden house with a large yard where logs and tools were stacked. 4 children waited at the entrance, perfectly lined up by height. Their serious faces examined me as I got out of the truck. The oldest, a boy with dark eyes and a furrowed brow, looked at me with evident disdain. The youngest, a girl with large brown eyes, seemed scared. My heart sank. They too were victims of this situation. "Children, this is Carmen, your new mother," Mr. Alexander said with a firm voice. "You will treat her with respect." He said nothing about loving me or even accepting me, just respect. It was more than I had expected. The children nodded in silence, except for the oldest, who spat on the ground before turning and entering the house. Mr. Alexander said nothing, but I saw his jaw clench. "I'll show you the house," he said, guiding me inside. It was simple but clean. A large kitchen, a living room with worn but comfortable furniture, and upstairs 4 bedrooms. "This is yours," he said, pointing to a small room with a single bed. "I sleep on the other side of the hallway. The children share the other 2. I was surprised. I had expected him to want to consummate the marriage immediately. As if reading my thoughts, he added, "I didn't bring you here for that. I need someone to take care of my children and the house while I work. If in time you want to be a true wife, we'll talk. If not, I'll respect your space." That night, while unpacking my few belongings, I heard the muffled crying of the little one in the adjoining room. Without thinking, I went out to the hallway and gently opened her door. The girl startled, quickly wiping away her tears. "Are you okay?" I asked, staying in the doorway. She shook her head. I miss my mama, she said with a broken voice. And now you're here, but you're not her. Her honesty disarmed me. No, I replied. I'm not her, and I'll never pretend to be. But if you let me, I can be your friend. She looked at me with distrust but nodded slightly. Thus began my life at the Mendoza Ranch. Sold by my family, rejected by my new stepchildren, and married to a stranger. I didn't know then that this betrayal would become the beginning of a story that would change my life forever. The first days at the ranch were hell disguised as purgatory. Michael, Mr. Alexander's oldest son, made sure to make me feel like an intruder at every moment. My mother made better food, he said when I served lunch. My mother kept the house cleaner, he commented when I swept. The constant humiliation reminded me of my family home, where I was never enough because of my condition. Every night, exhausted physically and emotionally, I locked myself in my small room and cried silently. Mr. Alexander was barely at home. He left before dawn and returned when the sun had already set. He was a man of few words but observant. One night, as we dined in silence, interrupted only by the noise of cutlery and Michael's occasional contemptuous comments, Mr. Alexander hit the table with his fist. Enough, Michael. Carmen is doing the best she can. She's not your mother. She never pretended to be. But she's here, taking care of you and your siblings when she could have turned her back on us. You owe her respect. The family drama unfolding at that table left everyone paralyzed. Michael, with tears of rage in his eyes, got up abruptly and ran out. His siblings looked at their plates, uncomfortable. Mr. Alexander sighed deeply. I'm sorry, Carmen. He lost his mother too young. It's hard for him to accept change. It was the first time I saw vulnerability in him. That night, while washing dishes, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Anna, the 4-year-old, holding a drawing. It's for you, she said shyly, handing me a paper full of colorful scribbles. It's you and me picking flowers. My heart melted instantly. I crouched down to her level and hugged her tightly, feeling how a small crack opened in the wall of ice that surrounded my heart. The routine began to establish itself. I got up before everyone to prepare breakfast. I helped the children get dressed for school. I cleaned the house, tended the small backyard garden, prepared meals, and waited for everyone's return in the afternoon. James and Paul, the middle sons of 8 and 6 years old, gradually began to accept me. They asked for help with their homework, and sometimes told me about their adventures at school. Anna became my shadow, following me throughout the house. Only Michael maintained his barrier of hostility, although his comments had become less frequent. One day, while hanging laundry, I heard a desperate scream from the nearby forest. It was a child's voice. Without thinking, I ran toward the sound, finding Michael hanging precariously from a tree, his leg trapped between 2 branches. There was blood staining his pants. Help me! He screamed when he saw me, fear overcoming his pride. With my heart beating furiously, I climbed the tree, ignoring the scratches from the bark on my arms. I managed to reach him and carefully freed his leg. I carried him on my back, surprised by my own strength, and brought him back to the house. While cleaning and bandaging his wound, he remained silent, but his gaze had changed. Thank you, he finally murmured, without looking at me directly. Don't tell Dad I was playing in the forest alone. He forbids it. It was the first time he asked me for something as an ally, not as an enemy. I nodded, sealing our small secret. That day something changed between us. The betrayal by my family remained an open wound, but I found comfort in the ranch routine and in the small moments with the children. Mr. Alexander and I barely spoke, but our coexistence had become comfortable. He returned exhausted from work, and I served him dinner in silence. Sometimes our gazes crossed for an instant, longer than necessary, and I felt a strange warmth in my chest that I hurried to ignore. One afternoon, while the children played in the yard, Mr. Alexander arrived early, accompanied by a woman. Tall, elegant, with a face that reflected kindness and warmth. She introduced herself as Mrs. Louise, the school teacher. Carmen, Mrs. Louise has come to talk to you, Mr. Alexander said with an expression I couldn't decipher. The children have improved remarkably since you arrived, commented Mrs. Louise, accepting the coffee I offered her. Especially Michael. His behavior in class has changed completely. The pride I felt was unexpected. I hadn't realized how much these children mattered to me until that moment. But I haven't come just for that, continued the teacher. Alexander has told me about your situation, how you came here. The shame immediately invaded me. Did the whole town know how I had been sold? How my parents had discarded me for being defective? I don't judge, she clarified quickly, as if reading my mind. On the contrary, I admire your strength, and I'd like to offer you something. I'm looking for an assistant at the school. Someone to help me with the little ones. I thought of you. I was speechless. Me? Working at the school? Having my own money, my own independence? But the children? The house? I stammered, looking at Mr. Alexander. The children are at school most of the day, he replied with a slight smile. And the house can wait. I didn't bring you here to turn you into a prisoner, Carmen. It was the first time he used my name with such softness. Something stirred inside me. I accepted Mrs. Louise's offer without imagining how this small act of independence would alter the course of my life. 2 weeks later, while walking to school for my first day, a cart stopped beside me. I froze, recognizing its occupants. My parents. Carmen, my mother called me, as if we had a normal relationship, as if she hadn't sold me just 3 months ago. We need to talk to you. It's urgent. My father had a somber face. Both seemed to have aged years in these months. Your sister is sick, my mother continued. Very sick. The doctors say she needs expensive treatment. We hoped you could talk to your husband, ask for a loan. The audacity left me breathless. After selling me like cattle, they were coming to ask me for money? The family drama was reaching new heights of hypocrisy. My sister? I asked with a trembling voice. The same one who mocked me when she found out I was infertile? The one who said no man would ever want me? My mother had the decency to lower her gaze. My father, however, maintained his authoritarian attitude. We're your family, Carmen, despite everything. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Family? You sold me. You treated me like defective merchandise. The only family I have now lives at the Mendoza Ranch. With those words, I continued on my way, feeling their gazes fixed on my back. I didn't know then that this encounter would be the first of many, nor that the revenge life had prepared for them would be more perfect than I could ever plan. Working at the school transformed my life. Mrs. Louise not only taught me to be a teacher but became the friend I never had. With each passing day my confidence grew. The town children loved me, respected me. I was no longer the barren one or the sold one. I was Mrs. Carmen, the teacher's assistant, known for my patience and kind smile. At home the changes were also evident. Michael had stopped being hostile. One day, while helping him with a difficult math assignment, he looked at me intently and asked, "Is it true that you can't have children?" The question hit me like a punch. The family drama I had tried to leave behind resurfaced in a child's innocent curiosity. Yes, I answered honestly after catching my breath. The doctors say I never will be able to. Michael nodded thoughtfully. But that doesn't make you less. You know, my mom always said that a person's worth comes from what they carry inside, not from what they can or can't do. Tears flowed without my being able to control them. This child who had rejected me so fiercely was now offering me the comfort my own family never gave. That night, while serving dinner, Mr. Alexander watched me with new intensity. When the children went to sleep, he asked me to sit with him on the porch. It was a clear night, the starry sky shining above us. Michael told me about your conversation, he said after a long silence. I'm sorry if it made you uncomfortable. It didn't, I replied. On the contrary, it made me feel accepted. Mr. Alexander turned toward me, his face partially illuminated by the light coming from the house. I've never asked you directly, Carmen, are you happy here? The question took me by surprise. Was I happy? 3 months ago, I would have answered with a resounding no. But now, I'm finding my place, I answered honestly. And that's more than I ever expected. He nodded, satisfied with my response. When I brought you here, I did it thinking only of my children. They needed a woman in the house. But now I see that you're much more than that. You've brought light to this house, Carmen. His words awakened something in me that I thought was dead. Hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, I could build a real life here, not just an existence of survival. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. My salary, although modest, gave me an independence I had never known. I saved every penny carefully, dreaming of a future where I wouldn't depend on anyone. The relationship with Mr. Alexander also evolved. We were no longer two strangers sharing a roof. We talked in the evenings, we shared concerns about the children, we even laughed together occasionally. I discovered that behind his serious facade was an intelligent and considerate man. A man who respected my space and my decisions. However, the shadow of my past continued to lurk. My parents kept appearing in town trying to talk to me. My sister Lucy's illness was real, according to Mrs. Louise's confirmation. She was seriously ill, and the treatment was certainly expensive. One afternoon, while returning from school, my father intercepted me. He looked haggard, desperate. Carmen, please, Lucy is getting worse. The doctors say without treatment she won't make it through winter. I beg you, talk to your husband. The plea from a man who had once been so proud should have given me satisfaction. I should have felt that revenge was beginning to materialize. But I only felt sadness. Why don't you sell the land? I asked. The north plot is good. It would be worth enough. We already tried, he replied with a defeated voice. No one wants to buy it. The drought has made prices fall. Something in his story didn't add up. The north plot was the best land they owned. It had always given good harvests, drought or not. And the savings you always bragged about keeping for emergencies? My father looked away. They're gone. He was lying. I knew him too well. There was something he wasn't telling me, something important. That night, while Mr. Alexander and I shared coffee after putting the children to bed, I told him about the encounters with my parents and my suspicions. Do you trust me, Carmen? He asked after listening to me attentively. Yes, I replied without hesitation, surprised by how true my answer was. Then let me investigate this. I have contacts in town. I can find out what's really happening. His offer moved me deeply. This man, who barely knew me a few months ago, was willing to help me unravel a mystery that might have nothing to do with him. A week later, Mr. Alexander returned with information that would change everything. He waited until the children were asleep and took me to the small study at the back of the house, where he kept his documents and did his business accounts. What I'm going to tell you won't please you, he warned, his expression grave. Your sister is sick, that's true. But the money for her treatment existed. Your father received it a month ago as part of an inheritance from a distant uncle. My mind spun trying to process this information. Then why are they asking me for money? Mr. Alexander took a deep breath before continuing. Because your father lost that inheritance. He gambled it all on cockfights. Everything. And now he's desperate. The betrayal felt like a fresh stab. Not only had they sold me, but now they were trying to use me again, taking advantage of my compassion for my sister. There's more, continued Mr. Alexander, his voice softening. Your sister. She's pregnant, Carmen. 6 months. That's the real reason she needs special medical care. The pregnancy is complicating her illness. The irony was almost too much to bear. My sister, the same one who had mocked my infertility, was now expecting a child, and I, the defective one, was in a position to help her or not. What do you want to do? Asked Mr. Alexander, gently taking my hand. It was the first time he had touched me like that, and despite the situation, I felt a comforting warmth. I don't know, I confessed. Part of me wants to turn my back on them like they did to me. But another part thinks about that innocent baby. About my nephew or niece. Mr. Alexander nodded understandingly. Take your time to decide. Whatever your choice, I'll support you. That night, while lying awake, I reflected on the turns of fate. I, who could never have children of my own, now had the responsibility of caring for 4 children who weren't mine by blood, but whom I was beginning to love as if they were. And now I held in my hands the fate of a 5th child, one not yet born but who shared my blood. The next morning brought an unexpected revelation. Anna, the little one, came running into the kitchen while I was preparing breakfast. Look, look, she exclaimed excitedly, holding a small bundle in her hands. I found it in the barn. It was a puppy so small it fit in her palms. It was trembling, clearly hungry and scared. Its mama isn't there, Anna explained sadly. I looked everywhere. Can we keep it, please? I looked at that tiny life, abandoned and vulnerable, and something broke inside me. Suddenly I knew what I had to do. That same day after classes, I went to my parents' house. My mother opened the door, surprised to see me there by my own will. I'll help Lucy, I announced without preamble, but with my conditions. The relief on her face was instant, but tensed upon hearing the word conditions. What conditions? Asked my father, appearing behind her. I'll pay the doctor directly, not you. And I want to talk to Lucy alone now. They hesitated but finally agreed. My sister was in her old room, the one we once shared. She was pale, emaciated, her belly bulging, contrasting with her thinness. Upon seeing me, her eyes filled with tears. Carmen, she whispered, I didn't think you'd come. I sat beside her, observing this woman who had been my playmate in childhood, before age and family expectations separated us. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? I asked directly. She lowered her gaze, ashamed. Because after how I treated you when we found out about yours, I felt like a hypocrite. Her honesty disarmed me. I didn't expect repentance from her. The father. She began, but I interrupted her. I didn't need to know that story now. I'm going to help you, Lucy, for the baby, and because despite everything you're still my sister. Her tears flowed freely. Then between sobs she told me how our parents had reacted upon learning of her pregnancy outside marriage, how they had threatened to throw her out of the house, just like they did to me. But her illness had stopped them. How the inheritance money had initially been destined for her treatment, but disappeared mysteriously, with our father blaming failed investments. I never believed the investment story, she confessed. Dad has always had problems with gambling, but Mom refuses to see it. When I left the room, my parents waited anxiously. I explained my terms. I would pay for Lucy's treatment, but when she recovered, she would come live with me at the Mendoza Ranch, at least until the baby was born. And then what? Asked my mother, scandalized. Do you intend to keep the baby? Is that it? Steal your sister's child because you can't have your own? Her accusation hurt me, but no longer had the power to destroy me. No, Mother. I intend to give my sister and her child a chance at a dignified life, away from the toxicity of this house. My words fell like stones in a quiet pond. My father, furious, began to shout, but I ignored him. I had already said everything I had to say. My decision was made. Upon returning to the ranch, I found Mr. Alexander on the porch, waiting for me. The children were already asleep. Without saying a word, I sat beside him and rested my head on his shoulder, a gesture of intimacy we had never allowed ourselves before. Surprisingly, he didn't pull away. Instead, he put his arm around my shoulders, offering me the silent comfort I so needed. Lucy will come live with us when she's better, I finally said. She and her baby. Mr. Alexander nodded as if he had already anticipated it. This house has plenty of room, and the children will be delighted to have a baby around. I looked at him, overwhelmed by his understanding. Why do you do this? Why do you help me so much? His gaze met mine, and for the first time I saw something more than kindness in his eyes. I saw a deeper, more complex feeling. Because I'm getting to know you, Carmen. And what I see I like. His honesty left me speechless. We remained like that in silence under the starry sky while a new possibility opened before us. A possibility I had never considered. That this arranged marriage, born of desperation and humiliation, could transform into something real, something based on mutual respect and perhaps, with time, on love. That night, while preparing for sleep, I looked at my reflection in the small mirror in my room. I no longer saw the broken and souled young woman. I saw a woman finding her strength, her purpose, her path toward redemption. The puppy Anna had found slept in a basket next to my bed. We had called it Hope, a name that now resonated deeply in my heart. Winter arrived with force in rural Texas. Snow covered the roads, making transit between town and the ranch difficult. Despite the cold, my heart felt warmer than ever. Lucy had been with us for 2 weeks. Her treatment was working, and although she was still weak, her improvement was evident. Her belly grew day by day, and the children, especially Anna, were fascinated with the idea of an upcoming baby. Mr. Alexander had prepared a special room for her, the sunniest in the house. At first, Lucy was shy and withdrawn, as if expecting rejection or reproach, but gradually she began to relax, to smile more, to integrate into our family routine. One night, while we knitted together in front of the fireplace, she confessed to me, "I never thought you'd accept me like this after everything I put you through." I set down my knitting and looked at her directly. "We're sisters, Lucy, despite everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I regret it so much. When Dad and Mom said they would marry you to Mr. Alexander, I did nothing to stop it. I was even glad, thinking it was what you deserved for being different. And now?" I asked, feeling a pang of pain at the memory. "Now I see that I was the one who was wrong. You've built something beautiful here, Carmen, a real family. These children adore you. And Mr. Alexander." She stopped with a knowing smile. "He looks at you like you're the moon and stars." I blushed intensely. My relationship with Mr. Alexander had evolved subtly in recent months. We shared more time together. Our conversations had become more intimate. And sometimes, when I thought he didn't notice, I caught him watching me with an expression that made my pulse race. We continued sleeping in separate rooms, but something had changed. One night, after everyone had retired, Mr. Alexander asked me to accompany him to his study. He seemed nervous, something unusual for him. "Carmen, there's something I must confess to you," he began, inviting me to sit across from him. "When I brought you here, I wasn't completely honest with you." My heart stopped for an instant. What could he be hiding from me? "I told you I needed someone to take care of my children, and it's true. But there was something more." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I chose you specifically." "Me?" I asked, confused. "Why? You didn't even know me. I had seen you in town many times, always so gentle, so patient with the children you encountered. Once I saw you share your lunch with an elderly man begging in the plaza. Another time, I watched you help a woman with her packages during a storm. I remembered those moments, small acts of kindness that for me were natural. I never imagined anyone noticed them, much less him. When my wife Elena died, I was devastated. The children needed a mother, but I couldn't stand the idea of replacing her with just anyone. I wanted someone special, someone with a genuinely good heart. And then you found out about my condition? I asked, guessing the rest. He nodded shamefacedly. I heard your parents in the plaza, arguing about what to do with you. Your father mentioned seeking me out, knowing I was looking for a wife. Not for what you think, but for my children. So you went to see them? Yes, but they didn't know I had already observed you for months. I paid what they asked, not because I believed you were worth that price, but because I knew it was your ticket out of that house. The revelation left me speechless. All this time I thought I had been bought as defective merchandise, when in reality I had been chosen. Why are you telling me this now? I managed to ask. Mr. Alexander, as I had begun to call him in my thoughts, got up and walked around the desk until he stood in front of me. Because I can no longer keep pretending this is just a convenient arrangement, Carmen. Because every day that passes, it becomes harder for me not to tell you what I feel. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his. His eyes, always so serene, now shone with an emotion that took my breath away. I'm falling in love with you, Carmen. Not as the mother of my children, but as the woman you are. Strong, compassionate, brave. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. Without thinking, I leaned down and pressed my lips against his. It was a soft, tentative kiss but loaded with feeling. When we separated, we were both trembling. I'm falling in love with you too, Alexander, I confessed in a whisper, and it terrifies me. Why? He asked, caressing my cheek. Because I never thought it would be possible. Not for me. Not after everything. After everything is exactly when true love finds its way, he replied with a wisdom that moved me. That night we didn't sleep separately. We didn't consummate our marriage. Both felt we needed time, that this new feeling deserved respect and patience. But we held each other all night, sharing stories, fears, dreams. For the first time since arriving at the Mendoza Ranch, I felt completely at home. The morning brought a clear, cold day, and with it, an unexpected visit. My parents appeared at the door, their faces tense, their gazes avoiding mine. We've come to see Lucy, announced my mother, as if it were her right. And the baby, added my father. It's our grandchild after all. I felt Alexander tense beside me. I knew what he was thinking. These were the same parents who had sold me without remorse, who had tried to manipulate me, who had betrayed my trust again and again. Lucy is resting, I replied calmly. The doctor recommended absolute rest at this stage. We're her parents, insisted my mother. We have the right to see her. Like you had the right to sell me? The words escaped before I could contain them. An uncomfortable silence settled. My father, always arrogant, took a step forward. I won't allow my daughter and my grandchild to live under the same roof as her, he said, pointing at me with contempt. She has a name, intervened Alexander, his voice hard as steel. It's Carmen Mendoza, my wife, and she's in her house. You are the guests here. My father reddened with rage. Lucy will come with us right now. We've already prepared everything for her return. The family drama was reaching its climax. Michael, who had been listening from the hallway, suddenly appeared at my side. Aunt Lucy doesn't want to leave, he said firmly, surprising me by calling her aunt for the first time. She told us so last night. This is not children's business, snapped my mother, visibly irritated. It's this family's business, Michael replied, standing as tall as he was. And Carmen and Aunt Lucy are part of our family now. His words filled me with inexplicable pride. This child who had rejected me so fiercely, now defended me as part of his family. I'm going to get Lucy, announced my father, trying to enter the house. Alexander stood in his way, imposing. You won't take another step inside my house without my permission. The tension was palpable. For a moment, I feared the situation would turn violent. But then a soft voice interrupted us. What's happening here? Lucy had appeared in the hallway, her figure wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but determined. Lucy! Thank God! Exclaimed my mother, trying to approach her. We've come to take you home. My sister took a step back instinctively. I am home, Mama. No, dear, intervened my father with false sweetness. Your place is with us. We're your family. Lucy looked at me, then at Alexander, and finally at Michael, who remained firmly at my side. My place is where I feel safe, she replied with a strength I hadn't seen in her before. Where my baby and I are respected. And that's here with Carmen and her family. The word her resonated like an echo. For Lucy, I was no longer the discarded daughter of the Garcias. I was Carmen.